experience together. Over to you, Pat. Stage is yours. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Lena. And thank you to everyone who has made time in your evening to come together. And some of you, if it's morning, afternoon, evening, welcome to each one of you. One of the things that I love about talking about mentoring is that each one of us, I would imagine, has experience, personal experience, maybe even up close and personal experience with both mentoring someone and being mentored. So I'm going to invite you to share your experiences during this time together as well. I am where I am because of mentoring, both within my Toastmastering experiences, which is now 4 decades long, but as well in my corporate professional life. Everything I did in Toastmasters when I was a young woman taught me, when I got in the corporate world and was busy building my career, to go looking for mentors. And I used the very same principles. And interestingly enough, at one point in my time, I was actually hired to put together a corporate mentoring program across our entire province, which would be your state, for mentoring in the corporate world. And I was the matchmaker of putting people together and getting them together and finding what they wanted to learn and who could teach them that. And it was a great experience. And it really confirmed and affirmed for me how strongly I believe in mentoring. And so I want to talk with you about it tonight, or during this session. I keep saying tonight because that's my reference where I am. So the first thing I want to be clear about is the difference between coaching and mentoring, because some people exchange these words, and to me, they're very different words. First of all, I am a certified coach. When I coach someone, it doesn't look anything like when I mentor someone. Let me explain the difference. For me, a coach finds questions to ask the person I'm working with. I don't give you the answers when I'm your coach. I let you find your own way through. I ask questions, I paraphrase, I might reflect back on what you're saying, I might query, I might ask you to dig deeper into something, look at it from different angles, but I don't give you the answers. You find your own answers. Mentoring to me is the other end of that spectrum. Mentoring is like the old-fashioned apprenticeship programs. Now, nobody on here is old enough to have been back in the blacksmith shops, but this is, I used to train horses, and we put horseshoes on horses, and we had, we had to heat up that metal and pound it into the shape of the horse's hoof. And I always think of that as apprenticeship, and how people learned in those blacksmith shops and out in the fields and out building houses. We learned by working with somebody who already knew how to do it. And that's how I even translate it nowadays. When I personally go looking for a mentor, or a mentor finds me in some cases, it's usually to teach me something specific. In lots of cases, it's because they've already been successful at doing it and they're willing to share. They often help me avoid the traps that they fell into. They have helped me avoid the mistakes that they made. They often will put me in touch with their resources or their network that will help me move faster in the direction that I want to go in. So I want to talk a bit about that tonight. And I want to also speak to it from both the mentee or the protege's perspective, as well as the mentor's perspective. Because if we have been mentored well, we can hardly wait to mentor. And let's be clear, in most cases, it has very little to do with age. It might not have anything to do with Toastmasters experience. it will be specific, because we all come to Toastmasters with different backgrounds. So for example, coaching would not be something that I learned about in Toastmasters. I went to school to get that certification. However, I might mentor someone in my Toastmasters club that wants to be a better coach, or to be able to coach more when they're working with people in their work. And we would meet at Toastmasters, and I'm willing to do that. On the other hand, some people at work would see things that I do at work and say, hey, I would love to learn how to do that. How do you do a needs assessment for learning needs in a corporation? Can I sit in on your team to do that? And again, that would be mentoring. So they're different, and they're very variable. So how many of you have, just a raise of hands, how many of you are currently have a mentor for something in your life, either at work or Toastmasters? Okay, almost all of you. Okay, fantastic. So a couple of people, share with me where you found your mentor, and like how you found them, just very quickly. So Lena, can you quickly share with us how you found your mentor and where, and like for what you were looking for?
So I found my first mentor in my Toastmaster club. I was mesmerized by her speaking talent. So I asked her whether she can mentor me, and she willingly did. And another one is Abhijit Joshi. So I found him during speech contest. I asked him whether I can get his mentorship, and he was ready. Thank you.
Fantastic. Yes. So often that's exactly what happens when we end up getting a mentor. It's somebody that we see, that we find, and we ask them. My second mentor in Toastmasters was such a person, as well as my third mentor in Toastmasters was such a person. My second Toastmaster mentor was somebody that I met at my very first district conference. And I saw this charismatic leader at the front of the room, and I went, oh my gosh, he just captivates the room. What is his magic? And people in the audience were talking about how charismatic he was, and people were standing in line to talk to him. And I'm going, like, who is this? And what's he got? And I was just so curious. But I actually found out during the week, or that conference, when he approached me, that he was very approachable, which makes a very good mentor. And we started talking, and he, to my surprise, said he saw something in me, not like Dhananjaya said it. He didn't say it as nicely as Dhananjaya, but he talked about, me aspiring to, what did I aspire to do in Toastmasters? And that by what I was doing as an area governor in those days, I was really taking leadership. And so he spent some time talking to me and sharing very specific material. And he said to me, I want you to read the document. I want you to read the entire book on how to be an area governor. I want you to read the policies and the bylaws that it refers to, and I want you to understand them clearly. I want you to fully understand, and talk to me if you've got any questions about the boundaries, but get really clear on your whole scope of the role that you've taken on. He said, fill that role with everything you've got. And then he looked at me mischievously as if he knew me, and he said, but don't break any of the rules. And he so inspired me that I did everything within my power to be the very best area director nowadays that I could possibly be. I had never seen an area governor before, didn't have a role model, because we didn't have one that visited us prior, but I followed his words. I studied the policies. I studied the bylaws. I understood the parameters. I filled my responsibility. I was innovative. I was creative. I tried new stuff. I phoned him and said, can I try this? He said, does it break a rule? I said, no. He said, then go for it. So he was my fast track. And when I got nervous that I might be outside of the line, he was a quick phone call to reassure me to keep going. And that's all I needed at that time, because I was a keener, and I loved it that he just stood behind me and let me go, just making sure that I didn't break any rules, which was a great setting to learn how to do leadership in Toastmasters. Fill up the role, take all that we are and bring it to the role. Be as big as we can, be as impactful as we can. Just don't break the rules. So it was wonderful to have that experience as a mentor. He mentored me for a couple of years. And then he was busy with other things. He had a busy career. I moved on, and I should note that he was there to celebrate when I got Area Director of the Year in the district. And nobody was more surprised than me, because they didn't tell me ahead of time. And I was like, I can't believe it. But I was grateful that I hadn't broken the rules, and I got Area Director of the Year. But that second mentor in Toastmasters was someone I sought out because of his charisma, his presence in the room. And he helped me search for how to fill the room, because I got to practice filling that area director role and being as big as I could be, and being innovative and creative and being unafraid. So we sometimes find those mentors and we ask them. The thing is, I'll give you a tip. If you ask somebody if they'll mentor you and they say yes, please follow up with them. Please follow up with them. I can't tell you how many times that I've been asked to mentor people at mostly international convention, because that's where we run into people that we don't bump shoulders with in our district. And I've said yes to many of them and never heard from them again. And I go, wonder if that was just a test. Did they just want to see if I would say yes? So if you ask Salazar to be your mentor and he says yes, please phone Salazar or send him an email and say, could we get together and talk? So important, when you find someone you want, ask them and then follow up. The other person, how many of you have had somebody find you and they became your mentor? Anyone have that experience? Salazar, do you want to share how you were found?
Well, actually, mine was not a Toastmaster experience. It was a professional experience when I was still serving on active duty within the Department of Defense. And the director of the organization saw something in me, and he would ask me every time I was back east to come see him. He would sit down with me. He'd say, what's going on? Let's talk through this. Let's talk through everything. So I may only have spoken with him maybe once every 3 or 4 months in person, but that was it. And he really helped guide me to a higher level of professionalism in what I was doing.
Yeah, that is such a gift when that happens. And the challenge for us many times is to actually listen and believe when this person says, you have potential, I'd like to support you. Now, the first person in Toastmasters that picked me was the person that greeted me when I came into my very first Toastmaster club. And I belonged to a small club in northern Manitoba, Canada. And Joseph, some of you may have heard this story before, but Joseph was the greeter when I walked in the door that very first meeting. And because we were a small club and I was a keener, I spoke about every second week. And Joseph was often my evaluator. And if he wasn't my formal assigned evaluator, he was definitely evaluating in the room and giving me notes. Joseph started by saying, Pat, we really need more vocal variety from you. And I went, okay, great. That's really useful. So I would get tips on how to increase my vocal variety. I'd go home, I'd practice it. I'd practice my presentation very quietly. Then I would do it very, very slowly. Then I would do it as fast as I could possibly do it. Then I would do it as loud as I could do it. And I played with my voice thinking I would get vocal variety. The next time I was doing a presentation, I'm all excited. I've got vocal variety sorted out. I'd show up and Joseph was my evaluator. And inevitably it was, Pat, we need more vocal variety from you. This went on for months, 12 months into the second year. And finally I had enough. And I said, Joseph, when are you going to ask me for something else besides vocal variety? And he said, as soon as you give us more vocal variety. So he was a fantastic mentor who found me and never gave up. And it always was that journey. And he was always there and consistent and persisted. And I loved him for it because he saw something that I couldn't see yet. And that's one of the things when we're the mentor, we see things in the people that they yet can't see in themselves, just as that officer saw in Salazar. And he's, he would say, I see something and I'm persistent, I'm going to support you. So I love that part about mentoring when they find us. So who makes a good mentor? Any ideas? People want to share what you think is important to be a good mentor. Namitha?
Thank you, ma'am. So for me, a good mentor is who understands my skill and listens to me and tells me how to enhance this. For example, when I started creating posters for my club, Abhijit asked me, can you make this poster? I made that for him. And then eventually now I'm in the PR team of District 101, all because of a mentor who saw the potential in me. So the
Yes.
person need to know the skill of the mentee.
Yes. Beautiful. Thank you. So they certainly listen. They understand who we are, what our goals are. They spend that time, whether actively engaged with us or watching us and seeing what we're up to. But and they can perhaps see that they can contribute. But it's really important to have that right fit with people, because sometimes people will volunteer to mentor us and we're like, gee, that'd be great. And then we just let it go because we don't feel that connection. We might not fully trust them. We might not feel like we understand one another. There just might be something missing there. So absolutely, thank you. So somebody said, let me open my chat here because I'm seeing people write. Yes, absolutely. We have to have, brings the best out. They motivate, they inspire us for sure. They guide us. Someone we trust. How many of you have found yourself, and just write yes in the chat box if this has happened for you, that you've said things to your mentor that you wouldn't tell your club members? Anybody shared with your mentor things? Yes, we go, oh, our club, we prepare, we go, we want to show up. And yes, my mentors know a lot about me. Right? They meet me when I'm stuck, when I'm confused. We're often not our best when we meet with our mentors. I'm full of questions. I'm maybe even challenging when they're telling me something. So it's a good relationship, and it's a great way to cultivate trust and that team environment. Yes. Okay, I see somebody saying my mentor shaped me to become an area director. Yes, fantastic. We have so much influence if we want to use it for good. When, in Toastmasters, in our workplace, I always used to look at my workplace because we had formal mentoring and we had informal mentoring in the workplace of who could I mentor. And I was always so proud when my staff actually applied for management jobs if they were working for me and they were working as project managers, things like that. And they started applying for jobs outside of our department where they would get a promotion, that they would become management and start and work up if they had built those skills. That was the proudest moments of my life. I was happy to lose staff that were going up in the organization. And because we were working together, and because people had done that for me and I could do it for them. So it's really important that you find the right person. If you don't get along, maybe you get some information from them that you need from them, something very specific, and then go look for somebody more, perhaps longer term. So let's talk about that for a moment. Short-term and long-term mentors. Sometimes we'll have a short-term mentor. It may be that we need help with a technical presentation. We know somebody in our say our department or our Toastmaster club that does technical presentations all the time. We admire what they do. We feel comfortable with when we ask them to help us. They may only help us with that project. And yet there's long-term mentors, like my leadership mentor I've had since I was what is equivalent to club growth director. And that was back in 2000. So I think he's probably trying to get rid of me now because I've had him for 23 years, but I'm not letting him go. I always find something else I can learn from him. So some relationships are long-term, because what's really important when you look for a mentor, particularly long-term or even short-term, is that that person has done successfully what you're attempting to do. That's what I look for, is somebody who has successfully done what I'm attempting to do, or currently has a position that I now want or that I would like to eventually have. When I was growing up, my great aunt, who was one of my heroes, she used to say to me, "You'll be known by the people you hang around with." Now, it was lost on me as a teenager, but as an adult, I totally understood. And I wanted to hang around with the successful people, because then I could learn how to be successful from them. And when I first got into Toastmasters back in the 80s, I hung around with the district team. And although I wasn't in the district team for decades after that, I hung around with them because I wanted to learn what they learned. And I wanted to learn what they knew and what they were experiencing. And that's got me going to international conventions, going to regional events when we had them, and just becoming a sponge to learn. So mentors can expose us to things that we haven't otherwise heard of or seen, just as my mentors did, to tell you, well, go look here, try this, go to convention, go and look at these things when you're at convention, focus on this. So let's look at, so it's important to find the right person. How many of you have had short-term mentors, and what have you had them for? Anybody that hasn't shared want to share? Short-term mentor, anybody had somebody for just a short term? Anybody had somebody that helped you for a speech contest or anything like that? So let me share an example that I had. And this person was both a long-term and a short-term mentor, because she was a short-term mentor for a very specific thing and a long-term mentor for my career. Bonnie was one of my supervisors. She hired me when I was looking to work in the field of learning and development. And she told me things that I needed to do in order to get hired by her in the department to be qualified. And that was very, very specific because I didn't have any relationship with her. I just found out that she was the best training manager in British Columbia. I went to see her. I asked her if she would help me. She looked at my credentials. She said, oh, here's your gaps. You've got to learn this. You've got to go get this credential. You've got to get this education. And away I went. And I came back and I said, okay, I've done all those things. Will you hire me? And true to her word, she hired me, which was short-term mentoring for me, but also she took another role of short-term mentoring. Bonnie was a professional writer, and I felt like I was really inadequate when it came to writing. And as I went to work for her, I went to see her one day and I said, will you mentor me specifically in writing? And she said, well, how would you like me to do that? I said, everything I send to you, would you please red mark it and edit it as you would copy and send it back to me? She said, that might be a bit intimidating. I said, I'm prepared. And so it was horrifying for some of the staff because they saw some of these very red pages coming back to me and I'm going, no, 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 I'm good. But through probably 6 months, I could feel my writing ability and my confidence expand. I could actually feel it moving in me. It was that powerful. And because everything she saw of mine that was written, she would edit it because I gave her permission to do so. And she did so. And I learned so much from her. So we need to ask specifics as well. So another thing to keep in mind, when you are a protege or a mentee and you're talking to a mentor, know what your goals are. Know if they're long-term goals, are they short-term goals? Do you want an informal relationship with this person where you just touch base once in a while, or do you want to set it up as a regular touch base? Those are really important things to have for a discussion so that both of you know where the relationship's going and how it's going. You need to talk about how are you going to connect. And I find that it's really important that the protege or the mentee drive the relationship. Don't wait for the mentor to call you. Set up, if you want it regular, set it up regular. Make sure it's in the calendar, confirm, keep it going until you don't need them anymore, and then let them know that you're done. You know as much as they do. Or not, but you've got what you came for, right? Because sometimes that happens. So really, really important to establish that, whether it's formal, short-term, long-term, informal relationship, because you want to build that trust, you want to build that integrity, that vulnerability, that opportunity. And I think what happens when you build the trust in the relationship is that you get an opportunity to disagree. And I love that because my mentor, my long-term leadership mentor, we have had many heated debates about leadership because we don't agree on everything. And neither one of us are right or wrong. We're just different. But it's very valuable to explore and dig down in that if you've got that trust, if you can have differing opinions, if you have that safe place to explore and expand and try out ideas. And somebody will say, oh, well, what planet are you from? And then you can explain how you got there or what brought you there, because we're products of our experience. And that's why one of my leadership mentors, 23 years with me, because he has the capacity to listen to my weird ideas and sort them through. And some of them, he says, that's great. You should take that somewhere. And some you'll say, you should not talk about that to anybody anymore. And I usually listen to them. So, we want those relationships. They're so valuable. And just think how valuable that is in our careers, not just Toastmasters, but in our careers. So just like so many things, Toastmasters is a great place to try things out. And we can try mentoring out in Toastmasters. One of the other things that I've really learned in mentoring is to, as a mentee and as a mentor, is to come prepared for those meetings. Know what you want to cover and use the time wisely. I mentor some people and we talk an hour or more every single week. I mentor other people where we talk a half an hour once a month. And they both work well for the people and what we're mentoring on. Some people come with, I just need to check in that this is within the guidelines, and do you have anything to add? So they have lots of ideas formulated and plans worked out, and we bounce them around and look at them. And other people come to brainstorm and work. I find that another skill that's really important in the mentoring relationship is that both parties do a lot of listening. That we just listen to one another and hear what the other person's saying. And this is often challenging. I will say this, sometimes I have my own story because of my own experience regarding that. So, for example, if somebody comes to me and they're having, for example, difficulty dealing with somebody on a team, and they start telling me a circumstance and they want to brainstorm solutions or ways to get around it or how to deal with it, I can sometimes think of an example of when I had this situation. I'll go, oh, you should, the dreaded should word should not be in mentoring, in my opinion. So not necessarily the best word to use in mentoring, but one of the solutions is to do this. And I find that I'm much more effective mentor if I don't try to prescribe solutions. That I say, well, let's brainstorm. What are some things you think you could do? And so if you're mentoring people, share your wisdom, but don't always come prescriptive, and give them space to come with their idea, their interpretation. Let them find their own legs and their own way of being. And watch for that. If you're the protege or mentee, watch for that in your mentor, that they give you space to be yourself, that you figure out how to fill that area director's position. Another thing that I've discovered over the years, like four decades at least of mentoring, is to have common values. It really helps when you're talking about situations, whether it's at work, and sometimes we have to provide the background. For example, if you've got a mentor that's not in your workplace and you're wanting mentoring for that workplace, you might have to provide more of the detail and the background of that, like what are the core values and the mission statement of the organization, what's the purpose, what's your job description. You might have to bring this person up to speed to get them relevant and in the right context to have a mentoring relationship. Another thing that I have found really valuable, and I want to challenge you on this, and I've done this, I believe, with some success, is that I am not mentored by somebody in my club. I am not mentored by somebody in my area, nor my division, nor my district. I want new ideas. I want people that see things differently than I do or the immediate people around me. So I want somebody that, in their respect for the circumstances and the context I'm in, can be more provocative, have other ideas that I might not have seen. And my mentor is not even on this continent, which suits me just fine. And so there's always a different perspective, because I also think that in Toastmasters, we're looking at a bigger picture. We're looking globally in leadership. What's the impact in North America? What's the impact in India, the UK, Africa, Australia, China, and away we go around the globe. And so my mentor has a different context of Toastmasters than I do. So we want to look at people that have different perspectives that will challenge you to be more than just the environment we're in, because sometimes the environment we're in isn't big enough for us, but we maybe not realize that. So I'm going to stop talking right now and see if anybody wants to ask any questions or share any experiences with the team, because I've kind of jumped all over regarding it. Okay, so Roz wrote in the chat, I prefer informal sessions, check in periodically, be good listeners, share ideas, and accountability. Yes, you know, that's one of the things that is so critical in mentoring, is that accountability, and just to hold somebody and say, hey, how's that going? And you go, oh, dang, I thought they'd forget it. I was hoping. Okay.
Yeah, can I add
Namatha.
something, Pat?
Yes.
Pat, this is
Yes.
Roz again.
Yes,
Roz.
Roz.
I'm in a club, and we're an advanced club. Everybody knows everything about Toastmasters, but we're in a new what we call advanced club, because it's about entrepreneurship. So we have new members and seasoned Toastmasters. And I found that if I match up people that have at least one thing in common, whether they're brand new, and that could be a challenge, but it's going to challenge them to both look into resources and answer each other's questions. And then two people that might be related to each other, because my daughter's in my club and she knows me inside and out, and she'll tell me the truth. And that's what I want. I just want someone to tell me the truth, put me in the right direction, tell me when I don't have it right, and just be accountable. So the partnership and accountability is really important for me in mentorship. And I think it's going to work. I think our club is embracing it.
Absolutely. There is nothing for me more valuable than accountability, whether it's in leadership or in our work or in our personal lives. People that hold us to a high standard and call us forward, that's priceless, because we let ourselves off the hook way too easily sometimes, or we make excuses, or we say we can't do it when we know we can, but we're just not feeling like we want to do it. So yeah, I love the accountability and people that know us well enough to do that, for sure. Namatha, you had your hand up, and then Deanna has asked me to read what she's written, so I'll go there after Namatha.
Thank you, ma'am. So I was thinking, how can I approach a mentor in a district where I'm not a member of the club or outside my workplace? You said that outside your immediate clubs and immediate domain. So suppose I want someone from not my project, some other project in my own company. I don't know how to contact them. I don't know who can mentor me.
Okay, well, one of the things to look at is to see if there's actually formal mentoring programs in your workplace, which is what one of the things that I did in my professional career was to organize and provide that, where people from different departments across all of the government mentored one another. So they didn't work in the same workplaces, but they did different processes. So for example, if you wanted to go and work in a certain branch of the government, and you were working somewhere else, I would, as the mentoring coordinator, go and try and find somebody over there for you in that work environment where you would like to go, to mentor you, to help you get the skills and the knowledge that would help you be successful in an interview, and learn how it's done over there. And then it would be up to the two of you to work it out, but we would eventually be able to sign a mentoring agreement, and you would work together for 6 months, and then you could renew it for another 6 months if you wanted to. So sometimes it's looking at your network, Namitha, and saying, who works where I want to work? And who might know somebody who has the position that I want to have eventually? Does that make sense? Okay, great. And so sometimes it takes a while. We don't always find those people quickly, but it's looking where you want to go and being really clear on what your goals are. And once you do, it's amazing. Like, I really believe in the energy, the universal energy lines up. When we get really clear on our goals, the doors start flying open and opportunities come storming in. And so when we start looking for a mentor, say when I wanted to be the director of learning and development, it took me 4 months, and I was the director of learning and development because I met people, people helped me, a job came available that got an assistant job, directorship. My director went on long-term leave and I was the director. Like, it was just like, ding, ding, ding. It was like a pinball machine. I couldn't believe it. And I went, I don't think I did enough to deserve all this, but I'm taking it. Right. But people along the way supported me and helped me and were teaching me and showing me and mentoring. And so having those people that can show us how to do it in their departments is so great. Yeah. And it expands our knowledge to go beyond the department we're in. Yeah. So for me, it was always looking, where do I want to go next? Because I don't want to stagnate where I am. And for me, it was anywhere. Like, we all have different learning curves when we're in the workplace or in any position. And some people, it takes 18 months and they start to plateau. Some people, it takes 2 years and they start to plateau, depending on the complexity of the job. And me, it was like 18 months to 2 years, and I was starting to look again for the next step up. And if you're like that, always be cultivating the people who are working ahead of you in that big field, and look around. Go to networking events where that your occupational group might meet people, and talk to your colleagues who's doing this kind of a role that you're interested in meeting those people to find out. And if it's with a specific company, then target those people and look for those people. You have to do your legwork and your homework, but first of all, you have to be really clear on where you want to end up, because chances are you will. And you want to make sure that you had the right target figured out. Yeah. Okay. Deanna wanted me to read what she had written, so I have interviewed that person. He would talk my first job in Toastmasters. I have a coach Toastmaster that my career stronger with disability, this club meeting as a goal, powerful inside. Okay. And career that now an awe counter or timekeeper. Well, I think Toastmaster secretary of DTM leadership about 29 years. And I feel like that meeting so long ago, thanks Toastmasters. Okay. So thank you, Deanna, for that. So obviously you've had people that have helped you along the way to do things that you wanted to do and to achieve. And that's great. Thank you for sharing that. Todd, you have your hand up. Thank you for your patience.
No problem. My question was, I understand that after you do your level 2, you can open up the mentoring sub pathway kind of program.
Yes.
Or that in the old legacy programs, some districts created their own mentoring kind of programs. I was wondering if you have seen any that were of any value, because I know District 61 created something called Ignite the Fire, and it was kind of to have ambassadors go to like the clubs and set up a mentoring coordinator inside the club. So not necessarily give it to the VP Ed, but make another person on a VP Ed kind of team to help keep those mentor relationships together. Because it seems that that's one of the hardest things to do is keep those together.
Well, interesting that you would ask me. We have 9 executive members in my home club. We have the 7 officers, but by a special memorandum of understanding in our club, we have 2 extra positions. One of them is a mentoring coordinator, and one of them is a coordinator of special events, because we like to be about 32 to 35 members. We're not currently that, but that's our favorite number. And so that's a big load for education and membership, the regular 7. So our mentoring coordinator is like the matchmaker in our club. So as soon as somebody joins our club, she says she goes to see them and she talks to them and sees what they would like to achieve and gives them a couple of weeks to watch the people in the club and who would they like to be mentored with. And then she approaches the person that they're interested in being mentored by and asks, and they can agree or disagree to do it. And then it's left up to the people. And then she actually does some training for the mentor and the mentees in terms of working together, the goals, etc. So we do have a formal mentoring program in our club. It works really well for beginning members because, for example, I have a young fellow that just joined our club, and I'm his mentor, and he has he's special gifted, and he was so distracted, he couldn't get his icebreaker together, just couldn't keep the concentration going. So we had several calls during the week and several emails to talk about getting down to a really fine element of his life, and then not to make paragraphs of notes, but just to write the points that he wanted to let us know about and speak from those points. He had never spoken for more than a minute in our club, and on Thursday this week, yesterday, he delivered his icebreaker of 5 minutes and 15 seconds. And it was amazing icebreaker, and it was such a huge win for him. And I was like the proud mama that he had got it together. He worked, and I didn't do it for him. I just kept encouraging him and giving him different ideas of how it might work for him to be able to do it, because he was going to do it differently than I would do it. But yes, mentoring programs in your club are super valuable. The other thing is that lots of times that those relationships don't have to have a huge differentiation between how long you've been in Toastmasters or being new, because somebody might be a really good presenter or a really good facilitator that comes to your club, and maybe you've been there 3 years already. So it doesn't mean that you have to be the mentor. You might use them for a mentee or as a mentor for short or long term, depending on what you want to learn. So yes, consider having a mentoring program in your club, have somebody coordinate it, and people help choose their, who they think that they would learn from and who they would like to work with. And then somebody negotiates that and then gets out of the way. But then she does, again, as I said, some training around that, like how to look after that relationship. For me, one of the things that I love to do in my mentoring relationships, particularly in the club where I mentor people in the club, is to expose them to the whole organization of Toastmasters, because I want them to experience beyond the club. And that's my own bias, because I stayed in Toastmasters for four decades because of the scope that I could experience in Toastmasters. I've traveled the world because of Toastmasters, and I would never have had that opportunity without Toastmasters and being outside of my club. So it's my mentees or my mentors introduced me to that world outside my club. Now, The mentoring program online, yes, open it up, work through it. I recommend it. I've gone through it. It's worthwhile. And yeah, experience it. It's there, and take it to your club. Have people do it in your club. Yeah. Thanks, Todd. Does that answer your question? You disappeared from my screen. So yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Great. Now, there were some other hands raised that have since gone down. Who else had a hand up? Somebody else had a hand up. Okay, Vivian has a hand up.
Yes, hello, Pat. Sending you love and hugs from halfway around the world. It's 11:23. Yay! Group hug for everybody. Thank you, thank you. Love it. I feel empowered already. Okay, I forgot all my questions because of that hug. All right, Pat. What I do is, Todd knows this, I'm called an Energizer Bunny because this is how I think, how I speak, how I connect to people. On the spot, we're connected right away. And it freaks out a lot of Toastmasters. I'm looking for wacky people like me with a personality and intelligence and heart like yours. Now, where on planet Earth will I find them? Because every time I ask for help, they go, let me tell you 3 things and in summary. My brains go boing, boing, boing when that happens. Because I'm a conversational learner. I'm a conversational trainer. Conversational and banter, that's the way my brain works. Structure is good, but that is the foundation. And I love the last question of every speech project in Toastmasters. How does this apply? I am looking for that tribe. Apply it to like the people in my life. I deal with lawyers, with doctors, with psychiatrists, real people. So Pat, help me find people who will talk about application of the principles of Toastmasters rather than sending me back to 2nd grade. I know there must be more people, unless you'll allow me to bother you, then you're stuck with me, which is a good idea, right? So I'm trying to say, I know there are excellent people around the world who are ready for candid conversations on the spot, because I'm going to share with all of you a deep, dark secret, and this is a consult with you, Pat. When I ask a question as simple as, so what do you think? I have gotten hostile answers like, don't put me on the spot. Don't put me on the hot seat. Don't throw me under the bus. I'm like, ouch. So Pat, one word.
Well, I would say increase the diameter of your circle of people that you hang out with, and start to contact those people that you resonate with. So I found my leadership mentor at an international convention, and I've told this story many times, because back in the day, there was never any talk of stalking and behavior like that. But nowadays, they probably would have been following me thinking I was stalking him, because I saw this charismatic leader, and I didn't know who he was. I couldn't describe what was fascinating about him, but I had to have what he had. And not unlike my second mentor, who I met at a district conference, that I was just drawn to his personality and his way of being. And I wanted that. I wanted to learn that. The same thing happened when I was a club growth director equivalent, and I was looking for a mentor at international. I was attracted to the very same thing, this bubbly, connect with people, vibrant, telling stories, laughing, loving what he was doing. And I went, that's what I want. I want to love every day what I'm doing, or I don't want to do it. I want to have an attitude of we can make it happen. I want to have controversial conversations. I want somebody that's intelligent. I want somebody that agrees that there's not always one right answer, that there might be many answers. And that's what I found, because I went looking for it. And when I felt it, for me, it was feeling it, then it was true. And I walked up to him after many days of trying to get up my courage. And after the 4th day of walking around behind him, I finally thought I better say something. And I asked him very shyly if he would consider being my mentor. And he said, yes, but you have to be in touch with me when I go home. And I said, where's home? And he said, Ireland. And I went, how do I get a hold of you? So he gave me his email and I did it. And 23 years later, it's still going on. So, and we still have that challenging, and all through my leadership roles, when I was, when I was running for senior leadership, I would run my ideas by him and use it, test it. He didn't give me the ideas, but I brought them and we tested them together, which was so valuable. So keep looking. If you don't find them close to you, spread out and look further afield. Look in the big world of Toastmasters. They're out there and they're also waiting for you. So hope that helps, Vivian. Quick question.
Yes, I love you to the moon and back, Pat. Love you, love you, love you.
Well, thank you, Vivian. Thank you for your kindness. There's a question in the chat that Roz wrote. What happens if 4 members select the same mentor and some members select none? Yeah, this is back to the club. The coordinator actually phones. So for example, when the new members just joining our club, so Suzanne, who's currently our coordinator for mentoring, would phone me and say, hey, just to let you know that member so-and-so who just joined a few weeks ago would like you to mentor. Do you have capacity? So I get to decide. And on it, I'll be very clear. Right now, I have too many mentees because I have 5 that I have in my home club. That's too many to have in my home club. But right now, I love beginners because I so relate to them. And I just want to do that. I'm selfish. I want to do that for 6 months with them and get them over their icebreaker and feeling confident about table topics. And then they'll want somebody else anyway. They'll be tired of me. So I have, but we're free to decline. And that's important. And then what Suzanne will do is she'll get to, she'll ask the mentee for a couple of names. And then if I decline, let me use my example. If I decline, then she'll go to the second person, and then she'll go back to the new mentee and say, oh, so-and-so's agreed to be your mentor. So we get to decide what our capacity is. She does her best to spread it around, but some people do end up with more, and some people don't take any because they just don't feel that that's their strength, nor do it. Maybe their career at this point in time is so demanding, and they have children and a spouse that are taking time, and it's just not a good time for them. So people have the flexibility to do what they're capable of doing. So I hope that explains it. Yeah. Deanna, how do I do that online with Career Toastmasters, Secretary as DTM Leadership with interview? Deanna, I'm assuming you're talking about setting up mentoring with a Toastmasters club online. We just do it the same way. It's just online. So same parameters. People get to choose. They pick. They might have a conversation with the mentoring coordinator about what specific they're looking for, so get some help and clarity on what they want and who might be able to help them with that. So I hope that answers your question. I've got another hand raised and I can't find it on my screen. Oh, Catherine, sorry. There we are.
Thank you so much. allow me to just show my video briefly and then I'll switch it off so that you can see who I am. My question is, first of all, I want to thank you for suggesting that we have a separate person who's not an officer to take on the role of mentorship coordinator. I think that will be very, very helpful for us. As an online club, or I belong to 2 online clubs, I have seen that you can actually admire certain people to become your mentors, and yet they are also overwhelmed, just like this, someone's shared, they're overwhelmed. As a mentor coordinator, is it wrong for us as a leadership to match club members with mentors, seeing either one or two things, the level, but also the ability for all club members to get engaged in mentorship? Because I think that there are leaders that may mentor so many people, but they can get overwhelmed. And yet there are some good, leaders that can be able to mentor at least one person. So if we make sure that the whole club is engaged in having a mentee-mentor relationship, then I believe that it will be healthy in the club. Now I'm looking at club level. And at regional level, what my experience has been is that I had a mentor who had such a wonderful time with me because I was one of those hungry mentees that literally everyone still refers to me as the mentee of that mentor. I mean, I've moved clubs, I've moved countries, and I'm still in touch with my mentor, but that experience did not leave me. And I feel that it would be nice for every mentor-mentee relationship to have the kind of relationship we had. And I can't just describe that in a speech. Perhaps it would be nice if we have mentor-mentee relationships show up in either speeches or opportunities for people to understand. For example, like in this meeting, I would have loved to hear from your mentor live. Your mentor saying, this is what happened and this is how it has grown. Something that would make me so attracted to pursuing this, not just at club level, but for everybody else to really get hungry about the mentee-mentor relationship. And the fact that there's a difference between coaching and mentoring. So that has really grounded me. Thank you so much.
Thanks for that comment, Catherine. And because we're fans and we have success in mentoring, both being mentored and mentoring, we see the value of it and how flexible and how responsive it can be and how empowering it can be. And it really can. But both parties have to come with that attitude. And so we can't prescribe that. When we really encourage mentoring relationships in our club, but we don't force them. And but we know the benefits of them and we really encourage them. And we hope that over time, if somebody is saying, gee, I don't want to be mentored, that they'll see the value within the club and other people, and the people that they're talking to going, oh, my mentor helped me, or my mentor gave me some tips, that it'll sell itself organically. But I don't think it's a prescription. I think it has to be that people come with the spirit of doing it, and it's a volunteer education process, but it's a fantastic one. And we're over time, and I respect everyone for hanging in here. I want to leave with one quotation by Albert Camus, who's an author and philosopher, and he wrote, don't walk in front of me, I may not follow. Don't walk behind me, I may not lead. Walk beside me and be my friend/mentor. Over to you, Lena. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Pat. It was really educational. On behalf of Intercontinental Toastmaster, I want to express heartfelt gratitude to your exceptional workshop on mentoring. We are honored to have you here, And thank you very much for sharing your expertise and passion with us. I learned from your workshop that what qualities we should look for our mentor and what are the responsibilities of mentees as well. Your leadership and guidance have inspired us to become not only better mentors, but mentees as well. Your contribution will undoubtedly resonate in our personal and professional lives for year to come. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing this wisdom with us.
Thank you so much. It was my honor.
So we arrange this kind of workshop once in a month. Every month we and you are everybody are welcome to join this for next workshop as well. Thank you, guests and Toastmaster, for attending this workshop. We are honored with your presence. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat, for all that you shared. That was fabulous.
Thank you so much for everybody for their time.
I took so many notes.
Thank you so much, Pat. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Just go out and mentor people.